Hi, I'm Schulte. I'm a field agronomist for Beck's Hybrids. Today we're evaluating some soybeans that look rather ugly. So a lot of beans that went in at the end of April are just starting to crack the surface, just starting to emerge. And Mother Nature has obviously dealt us a pretty tough hand, but now they're encountering some other stresses as they start to break that soil surface and encounter, in this case, that herbicide barrier, that pre-emergent herbicide chemistry that's pretty persistent on the soil surface. So in this field, planted April 27th, they're just starting to emerge, and they also had a pre-emergent application of Authority First. Authority First contains what we call that group of PPO chemistries that are used pretty prevalently within our industry. Those are products like Sonic, all the Authority brands, Fierce, Valor brands. They all contain a PPO chemistry that, while they really help us to minimize the pressure we put on that post-emerge program, they do become a little harder to metabolize when Mother Nature is throwing us a curveball and we don't have the best of growing conditions. And now we're seeing some of the signs of the effects. So as you can see, the beans here that we look at down the row, they don't look particularly green and healthy like you would expect or desire. I move the residue here. You can see actually at the surface, as that neck and that hypocotyl is coming out, it actually appears to be burned. It's certainly discolored and brown. Many of these beans, particularly this bean here, right beside my finger, you can see there's a lot of browning at the soil surface where that herbicide zone is fairly persistent. Now I dug this bean up. It's not encountering that really persistent layer. You can see in this bean situation, the cotyledons themselves are like an orangish reddish, which is indicating that it's probably struggling to metabolize that herbicide. Now we also had these treated with the levo, so there's multitude of stresses within these beans between seed treatment in terms of a levo, Mother Nature, and also now as they emerge, they're encountering that herbicide barrier that is essential to keep our fields clean, but under less than ideal growing conditions, they're struggling to digest it quite at the rate we would like, and that's given us the effects or the ugliness that we see. Now, two questions usually come to mind. Are these beans gonna make it? And what's gonna be the impact to yield? So I've dug up a few examples here of beans to give you an idea, and this is how I usually evaluate. So this bean, as you can tell, looks pretty ugly, but all in all, we see a little more of effect of a levo, just not real healthy. But as I open up the cotyledons, you can see the unifoliates are green, there's green tissue, and if I go to the stem, I'm looking for a firm stem. You can probably actually hear that cracking, which is indicating that stem is firm. The greenness between the cotyledons is indicating that bean in all likelihood is gonna make it. Now I also have an example here somewhere of a bean that didn't look so healthy. Here it is. I dug it up, it was right down in the same row. As you can see, if you look at that stem, and you look at that hypocotyl, it's really spindly. It's almost like a withered look. It's not particularly hard and not firm. That bean is not gonna make it. So we may see in situations like this, planted at the end of April, that are just now encountering that herbicide barrier, we may see some stand reductions, but we know with early planted soybeans, we still have opportunity for really good yields. Now the second point is, what is gonna be the impact to yield? Back in 2017, we looked at a herbicide system study. We looked at a total post versus a more traditional pre followed by a post program. We did it across a couple different varieties, different trait platforms. And as you can see by the data that's in front of you, there was varying levels of response in terms of yield. I can tell you all the beans indicated that they were too struggling to metabolize. In that year, it was a PPO containing herbicide called Authority Assist. And yet there was varying levels of response. It's a good indication there's a multitude of stressors and competition for yield when it comes to soybeans. There's a lot of things that can rob yield. Sometimes delaying that herbicide program and delaying that herbicide application, the weed competition can also steal yield. So weed control is all about balance. It's a balance about having optimal weed control and hopefully minimal crop response. When we go through, Mother Nature throws us a curveball like it has this year, we can see some more herbicide response, especially when we have layering stresses. So hopefully this is helpful as you start to evaluate what your stands look like and what they'll look like here in another 2 weeks. With good growing conditions, I expect many of these beans to make it, but even with thinner stands, we have opportunity for high producing soybeans. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.